Yahoo Fantasy Baseball, the Tucson Toros group concludes its regular season. This is your Week 22 Quick Take. In action this week, first and second faced off in the final week of the season in what perhaps could be a rematch later on in the playoffs. Unfortunately, though, this was a disappointment for one team. Twice as Nice knocked off Grassy Knoll 7-2-1, bumping Knoll from second in the standings down to fifth when all was said and done. Twice as Nice finishes a dominating season by beating Knoll for the second time this year, while Knoll, with this loss, now seeded fifth going into the playoffs. Twice as Nice took 4 out of 5 on offense and then took pitching 3-1-1. An epic pitching duel, though, ended with a 2-2 tie in wins, a 10-9 battle in saves going in favor of Twice as Nice, and a tight battle in ERA and WHIP. Twice got wins from Jaime Garcia and Tommy Hunter, with 14 Ks from Josh Beckett thrown in. Twice as Nice had 4 pitchers with a 0 ERA. 3 of those were closers. For Twice as Nice, Matt Capps and Houston Street had 3 saves apiece, while Brad Lidge and Ryan Franklin each had 2. For Knoll, tried to keep pace in this epic save duel, but it still wasn't enough. Despite Brian Wilson's 4 saves, Carlos Marmol's 3 saves and a 0 ERA, and Rafael Soriano's 2 saves with a 0 ERA. For Knoll, the downfall of the pitching staff was probably Colby Lewis. He had an ERA of 22.09 in his start this week, certainly killing Knoll's chances on the pitching side. For Twice as Nice on offense, 6 players hit homers. Aaron Hill had 3 homers and 7 RBIs. Twice as Nice had 7 players hit 300 or better. 3 others, though, on the staff hit 200 or lower. Aubrey Huff hit a whopping .095 this week. For Knoll's offense, 16 different players were used. 12 of them hit 300 or better, but just 3 of them managed homers, and none of them picked up a stolen base. 15 of those 16, though, did manage at least a run, while 7 failed to record an RBI. In other action, AZ Padres capitalized on the miscue by Grassy Knoll this week to climb into second and claim a first-round bye in the postseason, knocking off Tucson's prettiest 8-1-1. For AZP, this is now second place for this team after going unbeaten in 10 of the last 11 weeks. For Tucson's prettiest, eliminated from the playoffs after the loss, makes the consolation round as a 10 seed. For AZ Padres, swept the offensive side 5-0 and then took pitching 3-1-1. 6 players for AZP hit 300 or better. Ichiro, .419 average this week with 4 stolen bases. 10 players had at least an RBI. Andres Torres, though, had an average of .050 for the week, and Ben Zobrist hit 105 for the week, so some bad batting averages there. For Tucson's prettiest offense, just 2 players managed homers. Mark Reynolds did hit 3 himself with 7 RBIs. No players hit above .267, and 2 players hit under .200. For the pitching side, AZ Padres had 4 players with a 0 ERA, while Chad Billingsley and Kerry Wood racked up wins. On the pitching side for Tucson's prettiest, David Ardesma had 3 saves and a 0 ERA. 4 pitchers, though, had an ERA of 5 or higher. Livan Hernandez had a bad week with an ERA of 16.62. Also in action, Jimmy Dugan falls just short of second, misses out on that by just 1 game, but knocks off Bronx Bombers 7-2-1. Dugan winds up 3rd in the overall standings, winner of 5 of the last 6 weeks, while Bombers finishes dead last and collects their 17th loss of the season. Dugan took 3 out of 5 on offense and then took pitching 4-0-1, forced a tie in the whip category with Jonathan Sanchez in the final game of the week, pitching 7 scoreless innings. Offense was really close, pitching really wasn't. Dugan had only 3 players hit 300 or better, 4 players hit under 200, including Jimmy Rollins, who hit just .087, and Johnson, who hit just 100. Angel Pagan hit 125 this week. Austin Jackson was the all-star of the Dugan lineup, though. Had a homer, a stolen base, 3 RBIs, 7 runs, and a .333 average. For Bombers, just 2 players managed homers this week. 4 of 9 players used hit over 300. 4 players had stolen bases. Dugan, 5 winning pitchers on the pitching staff, 3 pitchers with double-digit Ks, including Jonathan Sanchez, who had a win, 15 Ks, and a .6 ERA, and John Lester, who threw in a win, and 10 Ks. For Bombers, an excellent performance this week out of J.A. Happ, 2 wins, 11 Ks, and a 1.13 ERA. But the pitching staff did struggle. James Shields had an ERA of 12.46, and 4 pitchers overall had an ERA of 5 or worse. Greek Thunder winds up finishing 4th in the overall standings thanks to defeating the Metropolitans 7-2-1. Greek remained unbeaten in 8 of the final 9 weeks of the season, tied for that 3rd spot, but was awarded 4th place when all was said and done. Metropolitans lost the final 7 weeks of the season and took the final consolation round spot by just half a game. For Greek Thunder, took 3 out of 5 on offense and finished 4-0-1 in pitching. Many of the battles, though, were pretty close, but all seemed to fall in favor of Greek. Chase Utley for the offense on Greek's team. Homer, stolen base, 3 runs, 9 RBIs, and a .357 average. Starlin Castro chipped in 8 runs, 2 stolen bases, and a .440 average. For Mets, just 2 players hit homers. Brian McCann was one of those. He had 2 homers and 3 RBIs with a .353 average. And for Metropolitans, 5 of 8 players used hit over 300. Lance Berkman was one of those. He hit .417 for the week, but managed just 1 run other than that. And A-Rod, same story. Hit .400 for the week, only chipped in 1 RBI. For Greek's pitching staff, 4 pitchers had a 0 ERA, 7 pitchers with an ERA under 1.6. Brandon Lyon, 4 saves with a 0 ERA. Mariano Rivera and Neftali Feliz, 2 saves and a 0 ERA each. For Mets, the pitching story, Irvin Santana had 2 wins. Billy Wagner, 2 saves and a 0 ERA were the only notables. Also in action, there was a big battle for 6th place, the final playoff spot, which came down to the wire as well. Otis and the Drunks coughs up the 6th place spot by losing 8-2 to Koufax's Revenge. Revenge actually had a shot at that 6th place spot, but fell half a game short due to other action, settles for a consolation round bye after winning 8 of the last 10 weeks of the season. Otis lost the last spot in the playoffs in the final week, lost the final 4 weeks of the season, and has to settle for an 8th place finish and a consolation round bye as well. Koufax took 4 out of 5 on offense and in pitching. Most of the battles were pretty close, though. 6 players hit homers, 3 hit 2 homers. Carlos Gonzalez for Koufax, 2 homers, 5 RBIs, 3 stolen bases, 6 runs, and a .517 average. 6 players hit over 300, and 4 players racked up stolen bases. Otis's offense definitely countered with a big punch this week. Curtis Granderson, 3 homers, 7 RBIs, and a .308 average. 2 players managed 3 stolen bases each, Brett Gardner and Rajai Davis. Mark Teixeira had a big week with 2 homers, 8 RBIs, and a .476 average, but 4 players hit under 200. On the pitching side, Koufax had 4 winning pitchers, 3 double-digit K pitchers, and 4 pitchers with a 0 ERA. Hiroki Kuroda was the all-star of the staff this week with a win, 15 Ks, and a 1.72 ERA. Otis's lone winning pitcher this week, Brandon League. 2 pitchers had double-digit Ks, though. None of them picked up wins. Waveland and Sheffield winds up claiming that 6th spot and the final spot in the main playoffs by knocking off Woodla's 6-3-1. For Waveland, winning 3 of the last 4 weeks was enough to get it done to rally for the final playoff spot by just half a game. Woodla's season is over. Winning streak ends at 4 weeks with a loss in the final week of the season. Waveland took offense 4-1. Pitching was a 2-2-1 tie, and whip was the tie there. Waveland had 6 players hit homers. Miguel Tejada had 3 homers himself. Albert Pujols really struggled, though, but Waveland was able to overcome that. Pujols hit just 0.050 for an average and had 1 run and 1 RBI. 6 players, though, had 4 RBIs or more, including Jason Hayward, 7 RBIs and a .400 average. Woodla's 6 players were used on offense out of the 10 available slots. 4 hit over 300 and 3 hit homers. Those were the only highlights, though. On the pitching side, Waveland had Bobby Jenks for 3 saves and Jose Valverde for 1 win, 1 save, and a 0 ERA. Also, Felix Hernandez, King Felix, a win, 17 Ks, and a 0 ERA. Woodla's tried to counter that lone bright spot on the pitching spot. Chris Carpenter with a win, 14 Ks, and had 4 pitchers with a 0 ERA. Still not enough to get it done. Also in action, the Androids attempting to make the consolation playoffs falls just half a game short despite destroying Hunt 1981. 8-1-1 was the final there, eliminating Hunt from playoff contention. Androids falls just short of that consolation round, but does finish 2-0 against Hunt this season. Hunt misses the playoffs with an ugly loss, falls to 9th for the consolation playoffs after losing the final 5 weeks of the season. Hunt lost 1-8-1 three times over the last 5 weeks of the season to close out the year. Androids swept the offense and won pitching 3-1-1. Androids had Prince Fielder for 2 homers and 5 RBIs with a .318 average. Also, Shin-Soo Choo had a homer, 6 RBIs, 2 stolen bases, and a .333 average for Androids. The Hunt offense had 7 players being used. None of them hit over .290. On the pitching side, Androids had 2 pitchers with double-digit Ks. Hunt countered with Tim Lincecum, who had a win, 9 Ks, and a 1.13 ERA. In the final battle of the week, it was the 12th spot probably on the line as Derek Loico's Cheater knocked off Lucky to make it into the consolation round after winning 6-3-1. Cheater actually moves up to 11th when all is said and done. Lucky's season now over. Cheater took offense 3-1-1. Pitching was 3-2 in favor of Cheater. Most of the battles were pretty close. On offense, 7 players hit homers for Cheater. 5 players hit under 200 though. Hanley Ramirez had a big week, 2 homers, 6 RBIs, 8 runs, 3 stolen bases, and a .444 average. Lucky had Alex Rios for 2 homers, 5 RBIs, 5 stolen bases, 8 runs, and a .348 average. Unfortunately, that was bogged down by Dan Ugla's bad performance. He hit .083 this week with 1 RBI. Scott Posednik also had a terrible week, 1 run, and an .056 average. Cheater on the pitching side had Jared Jurgens for 2 wins, 15 Ks, and 2.13 ERA, but that had to counteract Giovanni Gallardo's terrible week with a 14.4 ERA and Kenshin Kawakami's bad week with a 15 ERA. For Lucky, 3 pitchers had an ERA over 10. Just an ugly battle on the pitching side in this one. So, we go into the playoffs. So with week 23, this is the quarterfinals of the league. First and second place get first round byes. That's Twice as Nice and AZ Padres. They are off this week. They get to rest up. Twice as Nice will be facing the winner of the 4 versus 5 matchup, which is Greek Thunder and Grassy Knoll. And in the other matchup, AZ Padres will await the winner of Jimmy Dugan versus Waveland and Sheffield. In the consolation bracket, Koufax's Revenge takes the week off. That team will be facing off against the winner of Tucson's Prettiest and Derek Loico's Cheater. And on the other side of their bracket, Otis and the Drunks takes the week off, waiting the winner of Hunt 1981 and the Metropolitans. So I'll hope to see you back next week for the quarterfinals recap in the Tucson Toros League.